Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Reality Check. I am your host tonight, Jason. This is usually the time when I would introduce Cassie, but she's not here tonight. She's got life stuff to deal with, so that just means that I'm going to have to talk that much more. But the good news is that I'm back talking about BBCAN, and I'm joined by a very special guest on this clothing optional podcast. He is none other than the meticulous mastermind, the streaking strategist, the storage room schizophrenic. He is one half of the BBCAN Season 2 Goof Troop, and my number one pick to win BBCAN Season 2. He's none other than the hitman, Arlie Shaban. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. You like that intro?
You liked it? I've been working on it for like 3 days.
Very nice.
So, I don't know, what's life been like since you got out of the house? I guess is a good place to start.
Well, it's been very different out of the house. I wasn't really prepared for life out of the house. I'm very well mentally prepared for life in the game. I was ready for that, but I didn't realize how big an impact it would have once I got out of the game. I just miss everyone a lot. I miss the connection we made in there, and everyone outside of the house just feels like strangers, even family and friends.
You know, that's something I don't hear a lot, actually, because you always hear people say, oh, I really missed my family, it was good to see them again, go hang out with my friends, you know, surf on my cell phone, but I never hear house guests saying, I really miss the house guests, I want to go see them again, right? But, I mean, spending that much time with people, it's inevitable that you're going to miss them once they're gone, right?
Yeah, we just formed such a crazy connection in there that you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the game, and then you want to say something to someone, and they're not beside you anymore, and you're like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, it's hard to turn your mind off after it being 24 hours nonstop the whole time, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you're going to Newfoundland tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah, going to Newfoundland for a couple weeks.
That'll be fun, partying up. So you're not staying away from them too long. You're getting up to see some people, right? So
definitely. I'm going to see John and Allie obviously live there, and then Kenny's going there for a week too.
Right.
So it's perfect. I got the 3 Newfies and then me. It's going to be a great time, my first time in Newfoundland.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure they'll give you the best tour you can imagine, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit about the season. Because obviously you watched the first season, and what are some of the differences that you saw between the 2 seasons? I mean, you're kind of speaking objectively because you're in the house, I guess, but I mean, for me personally, this seemed like a more fun season. Like it wasn't. Maybe it's just the edit or production or whatever, but they seem to focus more on fun aspects, at least watching the episodes back. Have you had a chance to marathon through them yet?
I have had the chance to. I haven't done it yet. I've got about halfway through. I'm a little bit past halfway around where I'm going to get voted out, and I've kind of slowed down watching.
Yeah, it's denied inevitable, but what do you think about the 2 different seasons? Because I feel like they are pretty different, and I don't know what your take is on each of them.
Yeah, they are 2 very different seasons, cast and production-wise. Last season, obviously, they had a bunch of different showmances and relationships, and there was a lot more single girls, so they had that whole dynamic to it. And then this season, 5 of the original 7 girls were in relationships, and so it was just kind of steered in a different direction. But then we have the production aspect of it. There's the secret veto, a secret room, Canada having so much influence, being HOH. It's just really cool to see how much of an impact Canada had on the game, but also just how different the game was from regular seasons. I feel like personally they incorporated a lot of aspects that they do in like UK and Australian versions of Big Brother, where they have like secret rooms, people living in them. They have people coming in late in the game and stuff like that. And also just the fact that the country has a lot of influence too. That also, I like the combination of like North American and foreign Big Brother all in this season, I found.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing a lot. Is it's like a weird mix of UK and US, and it's funny because a lot of the feedback you hear from US players Like, I'm a big fan of Rob as a podcast, so I'm always listening to that. He's always got people on, and they're always complaining about, oh, Canada has too much power, and oh, this isn't the same, and this isn't what we deal with, and you know, many people always have to be reminded that it's not BBUS, right? It's not
Yeah.
the same game. It's different, and I love that because, I mean, it would be good if it was exactly like BBUS because it's just more Big Brother.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's so different means that you're getting a new experience every time you watch. You almost have to like change the way you think about stuff when
Yep.
you're watching it because BBUS is a whole different monster, right? And they're similar enough that it's familiar, but different enough that it really keeps you on your toes. You have no idea what's going to happen, which I really love.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There is some twists and turns that threw you for a loop as viewers and game players.
Hmm. What? Now that's something I'd forgotten about, but I really wanted to ask you about because watching finale night, when Arissa introduced the Season of Secrets segment, and you guys got to sit and watch all of the stuff that you had no idea about, like all 6 of you on the jury, right?
Yeah.
And I could just see all the jaws dropping, just like, are you serious? What the fuck? This is crazy. So what was it like in that moment to see all of that stuff happen when you had, like, because Allison, she couldn't even tell you about it in the jury house, right? Like, you had no idea.
Vault.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so it was crazy seeing all that stuff for the first time. Like, we were all always curious about Allison, especially when she first came in. She did a good job as the weeks went on, and the more you get to know and trust her, she did a good job convincing us that she didn't know how she got in and that she was just stuck in a hotel all that time and stuff. But we had so much question about it. So to actually see that she was living there with Scott and Nate was crazy because we didn't hear them, we didn't see them, we didn't smell them, we had no clue. They were right under our feet. And yeah, it was just absolutely bizarre. And her secret veto, Allison was involved in a bunch of crazy stuff this season. It was crazy to learn. My mind was blown.
that secret veto segment, have you gotten to that in the show where she found it? You've watched that episode?
Yeah, I literally just watched that.
Like, watching that at home here, I was thinking the whole time, like, I was watching it by myself. I was in the dark. Like, I was just so in the zone. I was so focused on the show. It was like watching like an action thriller movie. Like the way she was bumping around the rooms and then like looking over her shoulder and then like running out to the smoke pit area and grabbing the clue there, running back, and then she got into the room and it was just so intense. And then the way it like lifted out of the floor, it was like a scene from Indiana Jones or something. Like, it was just so crazy. And I remember thinking, like, this is one of the coolest things I have ever seen on Big Brother. This is so awesome.
Yeah. It was really cool for sure.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite moments. It was so good. But yeah, no, I loved. And then they showed the little clip of Netta winning the veto and getting that secret meeting with Jillian and Emmett, which was really cool.
Yeah, that was insane for
I can
sure.
remember who was sitting behind Netta. I think it was Brittany, and she was just like, "What?" Like, slapped her on the back. Like, that's crazy. Are you kidding me? Yeah, that whole secret room was a lot of fun, and I don't know if they're going to bring it back in future seasons or what the plan is, but it feels like they went through a lot of trouble to make a room that they're not really going to use a whole bunch, but
served its purpose at least for this season.
Yeah, for sure, it was really good. Getting back to, I want to touch back on the comparisons to 2 seasons. You'd mentioned the showmance aspect of it. That's something I noticed. Obviously, there was only one showmance, which, I don't know, what's your opinion on showmances? Having seen 2 seasons that were so different, one with full of showmances, one with just a single one that really didn't last a lot of time. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they bring a lot of value to the show? Because, I don't know, from my perspective as a super fan who just loves strategy and gameplay, I loved watching a season without showmance, where there wasn't anything to distract from the game. It was just people playing and playing hard all season long. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably prefer a season with less showmances as well, as long as there is a lot of strategy and gameplay going on, and it's not just a season of a bunch of floater bums hanging around and then something cool happens at the end and one wins. So I like how our season was was a lot more game-oriented. Again, I am a little biased because I was in there, but I feel like we had a lot of big game players in there, and they were playing the game hard the whole time, where other seasons, sometimes there's only like one or two maybe, and they just run the whole house. In this season, there was a good clash with hardcore game players, and there was a lot of different games going on the whole time. Instead of just like last season, it was pretty straightforward what happened with Emmett and Jillian and them just controlling the whole house. But the house was controlled by different people at different times this season, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did jump around a bit. I mean, Jemett's stranglehold on the house at the end of the season was, I mean, it was kind of fun to watch because I was cheering for Emmett after the Shield got voted out, but it still is kind of boring. Like, Gary getting sent back in made it really interesting, but yeah, no, I agree. As long as there are game players, and this is the nice thing, is you have your opinions that will be biased because you were in the season, but I feel like you will still be able to step back and look at it as a viewer, having been a fan. You know, it's not like this is the only season you've ever seen because it's the only one you were on or whatever. I think you know what it's like to be a viewer and what's important as a viewer, you know, what you would look for in a season, right? And you're not wrong, though. There was a lot of game players this season, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Like last season, it seemed like a lot of people were just chilling out and relaxing and just along for the ride. You know, there's probably only about 4 people really playing the game. This season, it seemed like over half of the people were there to play, and that was really exciting. Like, really fun to watch.
Good, yeah. It was cool just seeing, like, as you're saying, I could take myself out of the game and look at it from a viewer's point of view, and I did that a number of times in the game, like during Ika's letters, stuff like that. I was imagining I was a viewer, and then, like, the different twists that were coming in and stuff, and I was so impressed with how I would enjoy the season if I was a fan. So that's one thing I knew inside, that the production aspect killed it for sure.
Yeah, building on that, it's another difference, massive difference between the two seasons, is the quality of games. I don't know if you realized it while you were playing those games, but I don't know, season 1 it seemed like half of them were Q&A, true and false, A or B, like what those kind of games. You're standing in a podium. This year, like, they went all out. Like the first challenge, I guess, was the icebreaker. But like, the first real challenge, that Divergent challenge, was nuts. I couldn't believe the stage when I saw it. I'm like, is this for real? Like, they've already surpassed the production value of season 1.
Yeah. It was crazy for sure. We did notice that. It was really wild.
Yeah, I remember that like that Neon Veto one was really cool. I'm trying to think of some other like really awesome ones. Even that last veto challenge with the big game board was really cool.
I haven't even seen that one yet, but I've heard about it.
Oh yeah, you're right. I guess you were in the jury house.
Yeah, I still am shocked that Heather didn't wear that squirrel suit.
Oh my God, I cannot. My jaw hit the floor. I lost my mind. I could not believe it. Like, even Nana, she's standing like a foot away from her, just like. Are you kidding?
Heather told me that in jury, and I was just like, so, like, you wanted to come here? Like, I don't get it. Do you understand where we're at in this game right now?
Yeah, and I thought, well, maybe it is kind of a big deal to have to wear that. But then I realized there's only 3 days left in the game. Like,
it's $100,000 like squirrel suit. Are you kidding me? I'd wear that for a year.
Yeah. And that wasn't even the worst costume. Like, there could have been worse ones. I felt bad for Ned having to walk around in that onesie for like a week straight. But at least she got to change of clothes after a while, right? But a squirrel outfit would have been doable, you know.
Definitely would have been doable. Plus, well, Heather was also saying that if she had won that veto, she would have gotten rid of Sabrina anyways.
Right.
And that would have just given the game to John or Netta.
Yeah.
It just didn't make a couple things in Heather's game just didn't really make sense at the end. It's like she wasn't in it for the win. She was just in it for the ride and the friends and not being cutthroat at the end.
Yeah. Heather was a different one for me because at the start of the season, I had nothing good to say. If you watch our whole cast assessment video, Like, I give you a clear 5 stars because you were just my favorite one out of the whole casting process. I'm like, this guy is going to be amazing to watch. Just, I knew you had it in you to be that cutthroat, like leave your emotions at the door. You're ready to lie, cheat, and steal if you needed to, but I knew that you had the charisma to really get through. Heather, she got a 1 star. She did not impress me at all.
Okay.
And I felt bad for digging on her at the beginning, but then through the middle of the game, she like came out of her shell, and like, the high-pitched voice went away, and she really started playing the game, and it was a lot of fun to watch. My opinions changed about a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was glad for that, you know.
Heather had a big turnaround in the game for sure.
Yeah, no, and that was good because I don't like talking crap about people's game. I don't like saying they're a waste of space. What are they doing here? This could have been somebody else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that she was able to do something, you know, come out of that shell and play. It was really good to see.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember, I think John was another one who I didn't speak very highly of at the beginning of the season, but all you have to go off of is the bios and those videos, right? So
yeah,
it's kind of funny looking back now. But yeah, what did you think of John's last greatest move in the game? Because I was, as a fan watching at home, like I was jumping off the couch with excitement. My wife was telling me like calm down, but I just like lost my marbles when he sent Ned out of the house.
Yeah, that's the best way for this game to end. I would have been so mad if John won and kept Neda, or if Neda won and kept John. I didn't personally think either of those scenarios were in the realm of possibility because this is a game for $100,000. I know you form strong connections in there, but when you know for a fact you will get a check written for you for $100,000 if you go against Sabrina, or it's a toss-up if you go up against Neda or against John, then you have to take the clear-cut decision. Both of them played really strong games, and were both very smart throughout the game. And if they made a stupid decision like that at the end, it would have been a horrible way to end the season.
Yeah, I think that move right there, I was saying this to my wife too, and Cassie, that move alone may have catapulted this season to be my favorite season of Big Brother ever, because it was just such a satisfying way for the season to end.
Definitely.
Like, I just walked away with this big grin on my face. Like, after you went home, I was like, okay, well, Arlie can't win now unless he comes back, which isn't going to happen because I was doing the math and there was nobody coming back or whatever.
Yeah, I knew too.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope is always alive, right? But, I mean, Neda and John were really easy to cheer for. Neda, I knew right from the get-go was going to be that cloak and dagger type player.
Oh, and yeah.
John, I was pleasantly surprised by. You know, I thought he was going to be the stereotypical dumb newfie coming in the house, and I was not looking forward to that because I didn't want somebody upholding that stereotype. I didn't want people seeing a newfie or a Newfoundlander, you know, being that dumb guy or whatever. So, really glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, coming up to that last challenge, I thought, you know, whatever happens, if they go to the end with each other, it's going to be crazy. It would have been difficult for the jury to figure out too. Like, did you guys talk about that? If it was John, like what you would do if it was those two in the end? Yeah,
me and Adele were on the exact same page where, with what I just said, if John brought Neda, we would have voted for Neda, and if Neda brought John, we were going to vote for John. And I think, I'm not sure exactly where the girls would have stood. Heather was always going to vote for Neda. And Allison and Rochelle were kind of torn between them. We just needed to see how the end of the game played out. I feel like they would have made a game time decision, so it was really close for sure.
So everybody's opinion was still pretty up in the air until that last little bit?
Well, yeah. Me and Adele 100% knew what we were going to do. Okay. We were always going to vote for Neda if she made it to the end and didn't bring John. That she would always get it, and then we would only vote for John in the exact scenario that we did.
Right. So you just wait to see how it played out.
Yep.
No, that's cool. Yeah. So Sabrina didn't have a chance in anybody's votes, I take it.
Not for anyone. She wasn't even getting Rochelle's vote the morning of.
Oh,
and
really?
Rochelle kind of just changed her mind last minute. She saw once she got to the the live audience that they were kind of like cheering on the Gremlins, and like a couple of people had Gremlin shirts on and stuff. So she didn't want to like turn her back on Sabrina last minute, so she gave her a sympathy vote.
How exciting was it for you to be this close to becoming a full-fledged gremlin? Was that like a dream come true for you?
I was literally that close, and I would have cracked so many jokes about it in the diary room if it happened.
Man, that episode just broke my heart. I guess you haven't seen it yet. I almost don't want to spoil it for you, but I guess you know how it ends, right?
Oh yeah, I know how it ends.
The editing for you, like even the like leading up to it, right from like the whole episode was leading up to this big game-changing move that these girls were going to keep you. Maybe they were just building up to that in case it happened, and then it ends up not happening. Because like I said this throughout the season, it's different with Survivor because they know what's going to happen and they can edit the storyline the way they want it.
Yeah.
The guys in the Big Brother editing room have no idea what's happening, so they got to like take their best guess and run with it and hope that it works out that way, or else know how to spin it later, right? But the way they were running your storyline, it was going to be a 3-2 vote to keep you, and it was going to be the coolest thing ever. And they brought, I think, Heather or Netta in, and then the other person. So it was 2 votes against you, and then Rochelle sat down. I'm like, here we go. Vote the other one out. Keep it Arlie. Come on. And she voted against you, and my whole world just fell apart. I'm like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It was devastating. Again, there's not much I could do. I knew John's whole game step by step, and I explained it to them. I explained it to Allison, Rochelle, and Sabrina, step by step what John was going to do. And they decided, they believed me when I explained it, but then what happened was, I was on the block for something like 60 plus hours or something. That's just ballparking it, but I probably had about 3 hours alone time with the Gremlins and Allison. And then John just stole them away for like, he would talk to them for hours and hours. And there was nothing I could do about it. I was like, can I just go pull you girls aside and talk to you? They're like, well, like, we don't want them to know, like, how much you're talking to us. And I was like, well, like, they're sticking somebody to me 24/7. There's no time for me to ever talk to you girls. And they were kind of just fine with that. And, like, they slowly just got swayed by John. And I was just like, girls, you are his target. Like, Allison, I know for a fact you were going to get backdoored this week. Like, they already told you that you were going to get backdoored this week. How could you ever believe them? And they just got tricked into deals with him, and he turned on them right away, like I told them, and it was devastating because they realized it was late.
Yeah, I mean that's what made it even more heart-wrenching. It was like a slow bleed. Like sending you out was like stabbing me in the stomach, and then the resulting 3 or 2 weeks was just letting me bleed out. You know, like watching Allison go and. Like the whole time they're all just bawling their faces off. We should have kept Arlie. We should have kept Arlie. Why did this happen? Like, you're getting what you deserve. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I'm glad that's how it came across because that's exactly what I knew was going to happen. It was tough to watch them not realize, and I felt that they didn't realize exactly what was going on in the game, and I was like, uh-oh, this is bad if they don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, in the resulting week and a half, I probably need 2 hands to count the number of scenes where it shows Allison or Rochelle or Sabrina saying, we should have kept Arlie. Like, they must say it at least a dozen times in the episodes to follow. So there's no shortage of remorse on their side. But
Perfect.
I mean, I didn't realize it until... Because I watched the After Dark that night. Because you got put up, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go.
Yeah.
Which was a crazy ceremony anyway, which we can talk about a bit later maybe. But
Great. Yeah.
I watched that After Dark. Was that the 3 hours you got to talk to them? Was out at the hot tub, and that was about it?
Yeah, that was most of it.
Yeah, so I was watching that unfold while you were talking to them, and I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even realize that they have 3 votes to keep him.
Yeah.
So they could control this like 100%. Like it just kind of clicked. I'm like, no way, this is going to be crazy. How could they not do this, you know?
Yeah.
And you were so like fired up, you know? And I was saying, I don't know if I argued with Cassie about that. She's like, yeah, but is he really going to go after John and Netta? Like, of course he will. Are you kidding me?
Who else did I have to go after? I would have crushed John out of the game.
Yeah, like it would have been just
Get me, like.
yeah, it would have just been satisfying if nothing else. Yeah.
Oh, plus, like, now that I know he's coming after me, who else can I go after? Like, he's
Yeah.
my biggest threat in challenges, and he's gunning for me. He just took a swing. If he
Yeah.
missed, it would have been no holds barred.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why it sucked watching these girls like trying to figure out if you were serious or not. Like, can we trust him? Like, what else is there to question? He just got put on the block by somebody who he's supposed to be aligned with.
Mm-hmm.
There's no better motivation than revenge, you know?
Yeah,
Like he is out for blood, you girls.
Plus, it's not like it was a soft player that did it. It was like one of the biggest targets in the game who, if you're not aligned with them, clearly you would want... Oh, there was a million reasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that ceremony. I don't know if it's too hard for you to talk about it.
No, well, I can talk
too
about
soon. Too soon, right? So, like, where to start? Was that the secret veto?
it.
As
Yeah.
well? Yeah, it was. Just crazy. I said afterwards that I actually felt bad for John. I mean, just being like putting yourself in his position for a second. That must have been like a crazy veto ceremony to host. Like you could see him just like hands on his knees, like breathing really hard. Like, oh my god, what do I do? What the hell's going on here? But when he said your name, were you expecting that at all? Like, could you see it in his eyes leading up to it? Like, he wasn't making eye contact with you. You kind of knew something was up, or were you completely blindsided?
Something was different that morning. Everyone was really hungover from the night before.
Right.
So that's what I thought the difference was. Now, in hindsight, it was probably more me going up on the block. So I did notice something different. I tried to act like, Arlie, don't be paranoid. Everyone was drinking the night before. So I not tricked myself, I talked myself into believing that's why things were different. But the second John took Rochelle off the block instead of Sabrina, I knew I was going up. Because that wasn't the plan.
Oh, that wasn't what you were told?
Yeah, me and John made all our plans. Like, I know John and Ned always planned, but me and John had talked strategy since like week 3, and everything we had ever said to each other had gone according to plan. And up until that moment, everything we had ever said we had stuck to. And then he put Rochelle up, and it was just the plan to put Sabrina up. I mean, to take Sabrina off. And the second he said Rochelle's name, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh God, he's putting me up beside Sabrina. I just felt it. And then he did.
And then on top of that, how likely did you think it was when Alice pulled out that secret veto that she was going to use it on you? Did you have any...
At that moment, I thought there was an absolute 0% chance because I didn't know what led to me going up. So in my mind, every single person in the house was against me, and it was a whole house decision because I didn't know exactly how it had gone down.
Yeah, I guess everything is called into question in that moment, right? You're just like, well, shit, if John's lying to me, who else is lying to me? Like,
because I instantly knew they did the move having the numbers to send me home, so I had to believe that there was a bunch of people in on it, assuming Allison was one of them. And I didn't even know... The first thing I thought, the second I saw it, was, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Not knowing it's a secret veto, that makes a lot of sense how she talked herself into not getting backdoored. Because you could just be like, don't put me up on the block, I have this veto, because obviously I didn't know it was secret. So I was just like, oh, makes sense why she talked herself out of it. And then, it was just, too many thoughts were going through my head all at once then.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, because you've seen some of the veto ceremonies, the nomination ceremonies. Is that really how quickly they happen, or is there a lot of stuff that they cut out of that?
They're a little slower. Like there's it's not like everything happens a lot faster on the show. There's some time in between.
Because it's like that ceremony, like I mean, a lot happened, and there was a lot going on in the game at that time, but it just happened so fast. Like I didn't even have time to breathe. I'm just like holding my breath, like, oh my god, is this really happening? What the hell's going on? Oh my god. It's
Yeah,
strange.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was a wild, wild moment.
yeah. Had Allison used the veto on you for whatever reason, do you think you still would have gone after John, or do you think
Oh
it would have
yeah.
been like
You guys would have seen
make
the
amends?
best. You guys would have seen the best TV you ever could have imagined if I had a chance to go after John. Because once the line is drawn in the sand like that,
Yeah,
and I have an enemy,
yeah.
I would have verbally assaulted John until I got him out of the game, or until he got me out. But I honestly think I would. He couldn't play in the next HOH. I was so confident against every single one of those players that I would win. That, oh my god, I would have been talking so much shit to John right up in his face. I would have been just going off about how he took a swing, he missed, and he's toast, and he would have been scared, and it would have been great to do, but. I told the girls I was going to do that too. I was like, you give me permission to lose it on John, and you girls will never in a million years question that he'd align with me after this, because I'll shred him to pieces. And they just didn't want like the turmoil in the house. I'm like, fine, like it's up to you girls. I give you what you want at this point.
Yeah, you're at their mercy, right?
I
There really,
was.
there really wasn't a ton of drama this season, was there? I mean, there was that stuff with Paul at the beginning of the season, but felt like after Ica left, nothing really too tumultuous happened, But maybe that's just my fuzzy memory. But it didn't seem like there was a ton of climactic moments, with people screaming at each other and everything, right?
No, there wasn't. Sabrina was in the middle of some controversy, but nothing like her and Adele squabbled back and forth a lot, but it never got like I guess it got heated once in a blue moon, but like there wasn't too much back and forth. There was more just Sabrina and a couple different people, and then they left early, like the Andrews and Icas and Pauls that
Yeah.
stirred stuff up. They all went quick because of them doing it.
Do you think it was it more boring being in the house with no drama? Like, because you were probably never involved, so you could just sit back and enjoy the craziness. Or was it nice to not have that kind of energy in the house?
I loved that energy in the house.
Yeah.
I thrived off of that type of atmosphere. It was good for just my game, and it was entertaining, and it was just it put people in a hot mess. And when people were in a hot mess, they were a lot easier to deal with for me, because my game was like being comforting and helping people out and being the nice guy. So I loved when there was chaos and turmoil.
Yeah, Agent of Chaos. I love that, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's why I was so attracted to you as a player, because of the way you said you were going to play your game going into the house, and then you actually played it exactly like you said you were going to. Like Paul going into the house said he was going to play one way, and then he did
Yeah.
the exact opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember in our cast assessment, I said, if Arlie can I was worried you were going to play too hard too fast, because it was obvious you were a super fan. It was obvious you were incredibly excited to be in there.
Yeah.
And I've seen this before. I think Anil fell for that, where he got
Absolutely.
in and he just went like too crazy too soon instead of just chilling out. But you chilled out. You chilled out real good for like 4 or 5 weeks. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you had a few good diary rooms, but we didn't really see a ton of Arlie, which was fine by me because I knew what
Yeah.
you were doing. Right? I'm like, it's okay. Just wait. He'll get plenty of screen time later. But
Yeah.
yeah. No, it was good to see, and that it's hard to play that way. I would imagine, to just chill out
So
and
hard. So hard.
not play the game, because all you want to do is play. You're there playing Big Brother. What are you gonna
Plus,
do all
I'm
day?
such a competitor at heart. Like, knowing I could crush these competitions, and I honestly still stand by that. I had so many tricks and little different quick things that I picked up in the competitions that if I was actually trying to win,
Uh-huh.
I would have done, and I would have won with them. And it's just like I feel like I know those things just by watching a million seasons of Big Brother, and
Mhm.
also the way my brain works. Like the one that always blew my mind, which was just like the most obvious common knowledge thing to me, was in the Nuts to That challenge when we're all going for the golden acorn at the end. Um, the first thing I thought when I see this huge crate of golden acorns is, oh, it's clearly going to be the bottom acorn. Like, there's no way the veto is going to be in the top, and it's going to be like the third acorn. Oh, we got it. So that was the first thing I thought. And every single person, and they all wanted it bad, every single person went through all the acorns slowly. And all I'm thinking is, why aren't people going for the bottom ones? It's blatantly there. Like, and it blows my mind that other people weren't thinking like that. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, then watching the challenge where you actually did try, you got like all of your rings before anybody got one, I think. I think one person got a ring, and you were done. And I just laughed my face off. Like, this is what happens when good players try, and they know the game, right? But
that's what I feel like I could have done in the vast majority of John was my only real... John and Kenny were the only people I was ever thought were like on my level in the vast majority of competitions. Other than that, Andrew, Adele, any of the girls, I felt very confident against.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed that Netta had a similar type of game, and she even said that too, that it was really hard to not play. You know, just keep your mouth shut. You know, use your ears more than your mouth, your ears and eyes, right? And yeah, I mean, it's how I would want to play, and I know it would be difficult, and that's probably one of the harder parts, is to not get crazy at the start. But you know, I'm sure it pays off after a while, right? You start building those bonds. You're never seen as a target. Because I mean, talking about the first 5, your name was never brought up for the first half of this game. You know, and it was every week that went by and nobody said your name. I was just so happy. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. This is awesome. Like, it was so great to watch.
Well, for a while there.
Where do you feel like, I mean, looking back and knowing kind of what you know, was there moments when you felt like it was not really going the way you planned? Or did you feel like you were pretty in control until that veto?
I felt pretty in control until that veto. And the thing is, no one ever tricked me in the game. I knew where I stood with everyone. Me and John... The only thing that I messed up on in the game was my interpretation of John's game. I took myself out of my shoes and put myself into every other person's shoes and analyzed their game, what I thought was best for their game. And it pretty much helped me with everyone's game. I was pretty spot on with a lot of it, except for with my calculation of John's game. I thought he would have to keep me for at least a couple more weeks because he wouldn't want to leave himself such a big target. And I do still believe now that that move was a lot better for the majority of other people in the game than it was for his specific game. So I just didn't think he was going to do it at that moment, and it wasn't because of anything he had said or done to me. It was just me analyzing his game. So I am happy that I don't think anyone ever fooled me in the game. I just feel like my downfall was not being able to get Netta out. I knew we had an unspoken, untalked about conflict with each other, and the fact that she was able to cut me before I could cut her was the biggest nail in my coffin. I knew she wanted to. I just didn't think she was capable of doing it the way she did.
Do you feel like it was, well, I mean, the answer's kind of obvious, but do you feel like it was because of Netta that happened? Or do you think John really, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think John was persuaded, or do you think he was already thinking that?
I think John was 100% persuaded by Netta.
Yeah.
I don't think John, maybe the thought had crossed John's mind. I don't think it would have seriously crossed it too much, though, because me and John were in a good position together. We had trust in each other. He definitely did trust me until Netta got into his ear. So he would have definitely done that move on his own, but not as soon as he did. That was Netta. That was Netta's influence, because Netta knew that what Netta did that was so brilliant was she convinced John I was gunning for John when she knew I was gunning for her. Right. And that she got John to protect her that way.
Yeah. Watching Netta's game was a lot of fun. I was cheering for her. John, towards the end, I mean, I'm glad he won because he definitely deserved it. He played a good game. He didn't just get taken there and then, it was the better option over Sabrina. Like, I feel like he really did earn it.
Yeah.
Watching Netta's game was so crazy. I could not believe it. It's funny because when she went to that meeting with Emmett and Jillian, they were talking to her, and it was funny for me watching them because they would ask her a question, and then she would give them a very analytical answer, almost like she already knew what they were going to tell her, and she really didn't need any help from them.
That's so
Which is
fun.
kind of funny. Like, she gets this meeting with them, and then it turns out that she's probably a better game player than they are, and she doesn't really need help from them.
That's
But
funny.
they did give her one critically good piece of advice that I thought you had, you know, you had this knowledge right from the get-go, and that was jury management. I commented about this in a couple podcasts with her, is her goodbye messages were pretty crazy. Like, her goodbye message to you was pretty cutthroat, and I don't know if you just appreciated her as a game player and didn't hold it against her, or if that kind of cut into you personally, but I remember it being something like, my usefulness for you is gone, so now it's time for you to leave, or something to that extent. And I remember saying in the podcast, when people leave the house, they're so emotionally fragile. You can't dig the dagger in deeper, like, you just voted them out. The last thing you want is for them to see your face come up on the screen after a couple other people have been smiling, saying how much they're going to miss you, and tell them, sorry, your time to go, won't miss you, thanks for getting me to the end.
Yeah.
It's just the worst, and
Personally, I know this does shock quite a few people, but personally I did just respect it. I'm so about game, and I knew that's what she was doing, but I will say that it was a very risky move, and I don't think it was a smart move for her to do that. It did work on me, but I don't think it's because she had that brilliant a read on how I would react. I think she took a little bit of a gamble and just wanted to be a little bit cutthroat, and that it was lucky for her I reacted the way I did.
Yeah. I want to say it was the week after you left that she got that meeting, but I can't remember because I don't remember.
It was.
Was it? Okay. Because her diary rooms, I mean, they were all nasty before that, like, really kind of to the bone, right? And then right after that, it was all smiles and like, oh, I'm gonna miss you. It was so great being with you. Blah, blah, blah. And I, right from your very first, I think your goodbye message was played for Nick, and like right off the get go, you knew this girl like, 9 days or something, and you're like, oh my God, you're my best friend. I'm gonna love you forever. I can't wait to see you. And I didn't know if you guys just made this real connection. I had a sense that it was just a little bit too over the top, that you were really just, being a super nice guy. But I don't know, did you have that super good connection with the Nick, or were you just practicing really good goodbye messages?
I did have a super good connection with the Nick, but
that's cool.
That was all just for, it was both. I wanted Nick to know how I felt about her, but I also wanted a good message out there, and like it was practice, and it was real. It was all that mixed into one, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's good. I love that. I love seeing people that are so tuned into the game that they're seeing every aspect. And I felt like that was one that Netta missed, but that you were always on top of. That, even when people leave the game's not over. They're not done playing. You still got to be managing those people when you leave. And that's why you can't make too many enemies, because then they go to the jury house and they sway people to vote against you. Did who was it that said? I think Peter said it, that usually it was Aris on Survivor. He said the first people that get onto the jury tend to dictate the mood of the house. If you went into the house hating Netta, or into the jury house, everyone that comes after that, you think you would have just been able to taint them, or was it a really good conversation every time somebody new came into the jury house?
I definitely do think I had a big influence on how the jury house was.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I went in all angry and upset, and then Allison came in, Allison was a little bit vulnerable when she just came in, but I completely understand why. She got instant evicted, and didn't have. I was vulnerable in the house. It took days for me to get over what was happening, but I had in the house time to do it. Allison got put up on the block and sent home 2 seconds later. So when she came into the jury house, her head was still a little bit all over the place. She's such a super fan. She didn't even get the veto. So if I was in a bad spot too, it could have been a very negative, damper mood in the house. But since I had already gotten all that out before Allison came, and then I kind of talked to Allison a bit, kind of I feel like lightened the mood a little bit, and did set the direction for the house. Me and her both did after that too. We helped her shell, and we would kind of all just be like a team of positivity almost, so we weren't all heartbroken that John and Netta just ran through us. But I do feel like if I went in there bitter, or even if almost anyone went in there really bitter about someone, that it could have some type of influence over how they're voted, because I always set the tone that, like, I want to see the best player win. I think it'll be bullshit if anyone votes for anyone other than the best player. We can't even consider Sabrina. We can't even consider Heather. We can't, because they didn't do what it took to win this game. It'll either be Adele, Netta, or John. That's the way we always looked at it.
Do you think Sabrina's gameplay early game merited her any kind of, gave her any sort of power for a vote at the end, But, I mean, it all fell apart after Canada's vote, right? But
yeah. I personally don't, and here's a couple reasons why. One, Sabrina was supposed to be like a super fan and understand the game really well, and she came in and decided she was going to start controlling the house. And I personally believe there's a handful of us in that house who could have done exactly what she did. But no one wants to do that at the beginning of the game. It puts a huge target on yourself and your alliance, and then they're going to get picked apart, which is exactly what happened. And like me, John, Kenny, Netta, we were all just sitting back watching, kind of just being like, okay, well, if she wants to take the role of some strategic mastermind, that's fine, because all of us are kind of playing roles where we're thinking a lot about strategy, and we would way rather have the heat not on us. So it kind of just ruined Sabrina's game, and then also she ended up coming in second place, but it's not because like her game plan was to get it there that way. It was just because she could get beat. And another reason that I feel like it was a very bad move was like when she formed the first five, that was 5 minutes into the game, and what she said to us was, okay, guys, I'm a super fan of this show. I understand everything about Big Brother. I know more than anyone in this game could possibly know about the show. You guys listen to me, I'll explain the strategy, and we can go far. First thing I thought was, okay, don't assume you know more about this game than I do, because there's not a chance you do. And second of all, don't tell me your complete strategy 2 minutes into coming into the game. I'm a complete stranger. You don't know if I'm your best friend or your worst enemy. So the fact that you want me to now follow your lead after exposing your whole game plan to me is absolute shenanigans. So I just let her do everything she was doing, but in my head I was like, I never had true loyalty to her because I didn't trust her game was strong enough to survive.
I'm glad I asked you that, because hearing all of that has completely changed my opinion on Sabrina. I thought, you know what? She was doing really good at the start. She had a lot of control. Like, I didn't really think she had a lot of control, because you'd see her talk to somebody and then she'd leave the room and they're just like, that was bullshit, But at the same time, she did get, she had a schedule of what she wanted to happen, and she made it happen, which is commendable. But like you said,
she had big moves. She definitely had some big moves that helped the first five, but like, I'm just saying, if I didn't have someone like Sabrina doing that for me, I would have done smaller, more subtle things myself. But when you have someone that's willing to just walk out with a huge target on themselves and be like, look at me, everyone, I control everything, which she would literally say out loud to people, too. Like, I know I'm controlling a lot of what's going on in the game right now, and it might be putting a target on my back. And we're like, whoa, even if you are doing that, you definitely don't want to say that to people. Like, calm down, Sabrina.
so funny to hear about that.
Yeah.
So how many true super fans were there in the house? Because I mean, there's some self-proclaimed ones, like I guess Sabrina. You clearly were. Allison has, I think, seen a lot of Big Brother, but
Yeah.
maybe isn't super good at playing Big Brother. I don't know if it was just her position coming into the house that really handicapped her,
Yeah,
but
with Allison, she got handicapped hardcore. I
yeah,
think Allison could have potentially been a force to be reckoned with if she came in day one.
right.
Again, I don't want to give her a. I'll just have to tell because she did have a game plan. I have a really big pet peeve when players have a game plan coming in and then do something completely different. But
Hmm.
I'll give Allison some huge leeway on that one because she came in 2 weeks late and had to completely change what her original game plan was of like not having a showmance or anything like that. So yeah, I'll give her some leeway on that. What was the original thing you were saying though? Before you mentioned Allison. Oh,
Uh,
super fans. The true super fans, I definitely think were me and Netta definitely, and
right.
then Allison. Allison's definitely a super fan, but she's not like she's a different kind of super fan. She's more recently, in the past few years, become obsessed with the show. But she's
Okay.
become really obsessed with it. Like watches live feeds 24/7, but she hasn't seen all the seasons yet. So she'll go back, she'll watch them all, and she'll really gain all that superfan knowledge. She's a true superfan at heart. Just it happened more recently for her than it did for me and Meta.
What about people like Sarah and Kenny and Adele who didn't overtly say, "Yeah, I'm a super fan," but they seem to really have a good handle on the game and seem to really know what was going on while it was happening. Um, did they talk about their fandom at all, or?
No, Adele said he didn't watch much. Sarah said she watched some, and Kenny said he didn't watch much at all.
Mhm.
Um, I never believe what anyone says ever, because I'm saying I didn't watch much, and Ned is saying she didn't watch much, and obviously everyone's lying. So
Right.
I still don't know now. I feel like Sarah had an okay understanding of the game. She was just I love Sarah to death, but I think
Oh
Sarah
yeah.
was just a little bit too emotional for the game because
Hmm.
she let emotions uh, potentially lead to her downfall instead of just thinking straight logic.
Hmm.
And Kenny was really good at the game. He was really good at adapting to the game. I think Kenny's biggest mistake though was believing that you could just find one crew and run with it hardcore. Not even just specifically the first five, because Kenny had side things with like Rochelle and I was lower on his list than Rochelle was for a long time. So he just he was good at the game, but I honestly think Kenny's biggest downfall was underestimating me and kind of treating me like a second-hand citizen or something, because that made me realize that he doesn't have any use for me, and he doesn't have
Hmm.
any trust in me, and he doesn't care to try to gain it. And he was a huge threat in the game, so I feel like his biggest mistake was not being open to people on the outskirts. He didn't try to pull in Heather once we saved Heather. I thought that was the first five's plan was we were going to save Heather on a last minute vote that I could when I could turned on her, we were going to save her and we were going to pull her onto our side. But the plan the first five had was pretty much to just get her out in a couple of weeks because she's a floater, and I'm like, but she's a number. Like, I,
Yeah.
there was no real logic behind their decisions.
The podcast we did after that episode, I like went on a rant about Sarah, how crazy smart it was to go chase down Heather right after that happened, and
Yeah.
be like, "Look, we saved you. It's not because, you know, we want the other side to win, or we didn't want the other side to win. It's because we like you. We don't want you to leave." You know, like I talk about these emotionally vulnerable moments, like with the goodbye messages. Just coming off the block or just coming off a nomination, oh, there isn't a better time to strike somebody and like get on their good side than right after something like that. And if you're the first person to get to them and say, look, you know, this is how it's going, chances are you're probably more likely to get your version of reality cemented into their head before anybody else can get to it, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was just brilliant of Sarah to go chase down Heather, because that's what I thought about too. Is and I mentioned this in a couple podcasts, is the best players are thinking ahead. And Sarah, in going to befriend Heather, wasn't thinking about getting through the next day or two. She was thinking about 6, 8 weeks down the road. Like, I don't need Heather today. We might vote her out next week, but we might not. Next week, the game could be completely different, and I might need Heather. So why don't I just go gain her trust now? And I saw a lot of people doing that, but I saw a lot of people not doing that. They just burning bridges and leaving people out to dry, and I just didn't get
Andrew
that.
was the king at not doing that.
Yeah, he had
He
his
would
crew.
literally just be like, I know I'm up on the block, and I might need your vote, but I hate your guts. What's happening here? This is a game where you can't have people hating you.
Yeah, exactly. Cassie has been texting me a little bit. She wanted me to ask you a couple questions, so I'm going to pound those out for her.
Right.
She, with like 12 exclamation marks behind it, she says, you have to ask him about his red suit thing. So we had joked about this. We're like, what is that red jumpsuit he's wearing? I don't understand where that came from and what's going on with that. But we noticed it a few episodes and just been like dying to ask you about it.
Yeah. No, that was they're red silk pajamas.
Right.
And I got them for Christmas when I was in grade 10, so a solid 10 years ago.
Nice.
And I just loved them. I used to wear them to high school. I'll wear them out when I go to the mall sometimes. I just think they're a good time. It's kind of just my personality wrapped up into a pair of pajamas.
Yeah. Oh, man, that sounds comfy. If you love them enough and you got enough confidence, why not wear them all over the place, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. She also wanted to ask, was there any flirtmance going on in the jury house with Allison?
No. Me and Allison are just great friends. I got to know Allison outside of the game, and I love Allison. Like, in the game, I didn't like Allison. In the game, I didn't like a lot of people, though. When you're not on my side, I hate you. You're trying to take something away from me that I've dreamt about for my whole life. So I would literally despise people when they were against me and love people when they were with me. So in the game, I didn't like Allie too much. But then once we got out of the game and I got to know her in jury, she's an awesome person. I totally understood why she made it on the show. She got a huge personality. She's just kick-ass. But no, there's nothing going on.
I suspected not, but it was very, very clear from the jury footage that you guys were like super good friends. Like it didn't take any time for you guys to just bond and just have a good time. So that was really cool to see that, you know, just that like instant friendship, right? After, especially saying what you said, that you didn't really like her, you know, and but I mean, once you're out of the game, things change, right? I'm sure there probably aren't a lot of people from the season that you just don't want to talk to ever again because, you know, like it seems like a pretty cool group of people that I think are going to be getting along. Like even Paul and Andrew, I'm sure they get along just fine now because they're just regular people outside the game, right? So Ika maybe not so much. She seems like there's maybe some people she doesn't want to be friends with.
Ika's awesome. I love Ika. Me and Ika get along so good.
She's feisty, right?
Yeah.
Now, Cassie's third question, and actually one that I'm really interested in, was if meeting Dan was actually longer and a lot cooler than we saw as fans.
Well, I actually haven't seen what you guys saw yet.
That's true.
But so I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how long. But it was cool. I can say it was one of the cooler things that I've got to do through the show because just being such a huge fan, I'm obsessed with Dan and his game. He did it brilliantly, and the fact that we hadn't even seen regular people, let alone Dan, like seeing some new person would have been really cool, and then it's Dan. We're just like, holy shit, it was next level. Really awesome.
Like I think you and Allison lost your shit. I don't know if anyone else really knew who he was. Did anybody else know who he was, or? I
think they knew who he was. They just didn't care the same way me and Allison did, because like I worship the show, and
like
so
you almost speared him off his feet. It looks like you just dove for him, and then Allison, like I think she screamed, or her mouth was like wide open anyway. But I didn't expect that. I didn't see him coming on. I knew Dr. Will was in that last season, but I didn't. Like I forgot that they brought people out at the end of this, like for the jury thing, right? So that was really cool to see. But the segment is like 10 minutes. It's not even that. It's like 5 minutes. So
Oh yeah, it was definitely longer than that.
was he there for like an hour, a couple hours, or just?
Yeah, he was there for over an hour for sure.
Yeah. And what was that talk like? Because I mean, you probably remember the Will visit. Everyone thought it was. I remember Twitter was up in arms. They're thinking he was just going to be like this jokester, and he wasn't going to take it seriously, and it was just going to be a waste of time. Then Will took it really seriously, and he was talking to them like, you guys really need to think about this, and I felt like Dan was doing the same thing, like, really bringing the bitter jury thing to the forefront and really talking about, may the best person win kind of thing. And was that what the conversation was really just about, him kind of cluing you guys into what being a good jury is about?
Yeah. He was just trying to see where our heads were at, what we were thinking. He wanted to see if we were going to be bitter or if we were going to vote strictly on game or friendship or just like giving us some pointers on what he thought the best things were to do. And yeah, it was pretty much just we were kind of explaining to him that our minds were pretty made up. We
Right.
knew that Sabrina wasn't going to win. We were telling him that. And he kept trying to be like, well, like, is there any possible way that she could? Is there any speech she could give? And, like, we couldn't ponder one possible scenario where she could. And, yeah, we were pretty much just explaining it's between John and Netta. Heather was convinced that John was going to bring Netta to the end. And we got in a little argument about that because I was convinced he wasn't going to. So she brought up a bunch of good points and, like, a bunch of good conversations she'd had with John about why John would. And I was like, like, she made me think a bit, but I was always pretty confident that he wasn't going to. There was just a lot of, back and forth, trying to figure out where each other's heads were at.
In talking to Netta after the season ended, I mean, you guys probably hung out a bit that night, the rap party and everything. I mean, it was pretty clear that she wasn't super mad at John. Like, she's heartbroken because she got evicted, obviously, but I think just like you being evicted by John, you're both really big fans of the game and you really appreciate good gameplay. So at the end of the day, you can't really hold it against that person for voting you out because it was such a good game move, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for me and for Netta. It was a little bit harder for Netta because she was literally like a couple questions away from a $100,000 check.
Yeah.
But when you can't hate the person when you were going to do the same thing to them. That was my logic. Like, I couldn't hate on John. I do think it was a little premature, but I'm not going to hate on him. I would have slit his throat in that game. So he did it to me. Props to him. He won. And Netta thinks the same thing. Like, she had been openly talking about how she was going to get rid of John forever. It was never a question to her. So the fact that he did it first, she had to have respected that move, even though it was at her cost.
Yeah, I mean, she never really seemed like a bitter person, right? And that's the thing, too, is you talk about the friendships you form, the bonds you form. I felt like theirs was strong enough to endure anything. Even them cutting each other like that, obviously they're still going to be friends after the show, right? But do you think if the roles were reversed, John would have been like just killed by that if Netta did it? Because he's not such a huge fan, would you think he would have taken it as well? Or because John's such a good guy, he'd have been like, shucks, all right, well, good luck, Netta, kind of thing.
Yeah, I have no clue how John would have taken it. He would have either been pissed, like, John's a sore loser for sure. He would get very angry when he got beat in competitions and if just in certain scenarios, John was a very, very sore loser. So I don't know how he would have taken it. I would have loved to see it play out.
Maybe you can ask him tomorrow, maybe, right?
I will, and he picks me up from the airport in his new car that he just bought.
Of course. Wasting no time, right?
In no time at all.
That's really cool. So I don't know. Do you wanna keep talking about Big Brother, or do you want to call it a night? I know it's late for you on the East Coast, so.
Yeah, I can do 10 or 15 more minutes for sure.
Cool, cool. I wish I had another question in mind. I've been thinking about questions as we go, and then
Yeah.
we get onto another subject, and I totally forget about them again because there's like a billion things I want to ask you, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about future Big Brothers. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that you and Netta are probably first in line, along with, say, Peter and Gary for an All Stars episode. Is that something you'll drop everything to go do if the time comes?
Oh my God, I would drop everything. First of all, that's really cool. You're saying that I'm even on the list of considerations. Like, I want it more than anything, and I just don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna make it or not. So I really hope that somehow I do. I would drop everything for All Stars. I would if they said, Arlie, you're only allowed doing All Stars if you go into the house naked 24/7. I wouldn't have. I would go. I wouldn't bring clothes. I would do anything to make All Stars, and that would be the most epic run ever. If me and Netta got in there together, oh my God, we would be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Actually, I was going to ask about that. Having not been, like, were you guys close at all in the house, or were you just kind of acquaintances through John? You know, because you were hanging out with John and Netta was always there, or did you guys actually spend a lot of time together just chilling out?
See, me and Netta never spend a lot of time together because I was avoiding her like the plague near the first half of the game because I knew I was going to align with her in the second half. We had
Right.
this weird unspoken thing where we knew we were opposed to each other, but we knew at some point I was turning on the whole one half of the house, so we knew that our games were going to benefit each other for a bit until we had to turn on each other.
Right.
So we kind of figured that out without even talking. But when because we didn't talk game, but when we did talk just regularly, which was rare, we always had very quality conversations, me and Netta.
That's
We
good.
got along famously on a personal level. We just didn't have too much time to build that relationship. But me and Netta click for sure.
hmm Did you see yourself obviously being friends with her outside the house now this is all done, being huge fans of the game and having it gotten over everything? Now
Yeah,
it's, opened that
absolutely.
door.
I always knew I was going to become really good friends with Netta. I could tell from the first week. She was always really cool. We always had good chats. We had to separate ourselves in the game a lot, but I never once thought that I would not like Netta on the outside.
hmm You know what I thought was really cool about this season too, and maybe you can kind of speak to it having been there and seen it. John and Netta's relationship together. It seemed like it was going to turn into a boyfriend girlfriend thing, and I remember Twitter was like, "Well, John has a girlfriend and Netta has a boyfriend." I don't know if Netta had a boyfriend, but it was
No,
very clear after the first few episodes when they did the family tour that John had a girlfriend.
yeah,
And I I thought it was so cool that they went the whole season without, some things happening behind the scenes. And
yeah.
obviously you form those tight bonds inside. I thought it would be super easy for them to just kind of like really, I guess, quote, quote, fall in love with each other. And I don't know, did it ever seem like that was ever going to happen, or were they really just brother and sister, super tight friends the whole time?
Um, well, I always knew John loved Janelle, like just loves her
Right.
to death. In the house, he made that very clear.
hmm
Uh, and I never thought he was ever going to do anything in a million years.
Right.
But I did, in the back of my mind, feel like Netta kind of liked John, and I don't know. It's just really hard because I feel like John, like they were kind of like infatuated with each other, but I couldn't tell why. Like I couldn't tell if it's just because like they have such a good friendship bond, or like maybe they're infatuated with each other for different reasons. They had trust, and in a game like Big Brother, if you have real trust with someone, that's something you can't even explain. Money can't even buy the comfort of having that with someone. So they
hmm
were just bonded that way. I never really saw it as a boyfriend girlfriend situation, more just like a brother and sister. But I do think that they had a different type of connection than the rest of us did, for sure.
Right. No, that's good to hear because I didn't want to hear, well, it may have looked like that, but really, and I could kind of
Yeah.
see going to what you were saying, I could see Neda being happy for John when he got a letter from his girlfriend, but there was that tainted, haze of like behind her eyes that I can see, right? But
Yeah.
no, that's really cool, and I really loved in the video when they did the families how John's girlfriend was like, "Yeah, I think I'd really like Neda. I think we're gonna be really good friends." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool that she's totally fine with this. That's awesome. Like, I love that, right?"
Yeah.
And I mean, it shows what their relationship is really built on, right? They must have really trusted each other through this experience for that to happen. So I'm super happy to hear that John was like that, genuine like that, right? So that's
Definitely.
awesome. So next season of BBCAN, if they ask you to dress up in a clown outfit and come host a Stampede event, are you going to be making that flight over or what?
Well, thankfully, they wouldn't even have to fly me out because I'm a local and could just drive on down to the studio.
We got Arlie on tap for this show. Yeah.
No, yeah, they're literally gonna have to beat me off of being on the studio every Thursday because I'm gonna be there. And
looming
yeah, I
in
would do anything for the show for the rest of my life. Like, it would be the coolest honor ever to be back for anything. And I pray, and I'll be pestering them to bring me back, and I'll be calling up John, and I'll be setting meetings up with him, and I will just literally be like, I'll give him every reason in the world to put me back on in future All-Stars, and just for a clip here and there. I love it. This is my family now. And the thing that's wild to me is I worship the show so much. And so when I'm sitting in the jury box, and I look over my shoulder, and I see 20 people from, like, the U.S. seasons and, like, all the past Canadian season, everyone was there. I was shocked that they were all there, but not just shocked that they were all there. The fact that, like, I would look back and they'd all, like, wave at me and be like, like, we're big fans. I'm just like, whoa, like, this is crazy. I'm big fans of you guys. The fact that you guys even are here is blowing my mind, let alone the fact you guys are saying you're fans of me. Like, a little overwhelming. Got to party with them all weekend in Niagara, which was a life-changing weekend for me. But the thing that's even cooler to me is that season 3, when they're done, bam, family. They are in my family, and they haven't even got casted yet. It's gonna be, because I'm gonna be just as big a fan of the show, if not bigger, now that I've been on it. And knowing now that these people will be my family for the rest of my life, and I don't even know who they are yet, is crazy. And I'll be the person in the audience waving to the dude in jury, being like, buddy, we're partying this weekend, you have no clue. And he'll be just as excited as me. Like, that shit is the stuff that, like, gets me going.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, like, that whole experience of looking over and seeing them in the crowd, because when I sent that Twitter message to you saying, hey, if you want to make some time, I'd love to talk to you. And you're like, within like 10 minutes, you're like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, what? Seriously? Because we started doing this podcast at the start of the season just for fun, because Cassie and I, through all of BB16, would just talk about it, or BB15, sorry, we would talk about Big Brother all the time on the phone. And then we're like, you know what, we have these conversations, let's just start recording them and putting them on the internet. And then we got Dee on board for a little while, and we ended up getting an interview with Kyle, and then we got an interview with Paul. And it wasn't until we got the interview with Kyle I was like, you know what, I might get to talk to Arlie one day. And then after the interview with Paul, I'm like, oh, we've interviewed 2 of them. He has to come on the show now, right? This is gonna be great.
So funny.
So it's fun to have been such a huge fan of yours for the last however many months, and then seeing your face pop up on the screen and do this interview. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm talking to Arlie, like, by myself.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
It's so fun. It's so fun. I hope I get a chance to talk to some more people from the season. Like, you have no idea how much I'd love to talk to John and Neda as well. Like, that would be so much fun. But I mean, I knew that the first week after the show or 2 was just going to be nuts. Like, you talked about the Niagara trip. Like, I knew whatever was happening after the show, you guys are going to be occupied for a while, right? So I think it was like Thursday afternoon. I was like, I'm just going to tweet at Arlie and see what happens. And it just so happened that was like less than 24 hours after your Twitter went up. So it kind of worked out all right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's super cool. Like, so excited. I'm just glad I don't get super starstruck where like I can't talk and I just giggle a whole lot because that wouldn't be a very good interview. But
That's funny.
just getting to chat with you, because that's what we love about this podcast. Is I don't like it so formulaic where we're just asking question after question after question after question. I like it being a conversation
Yeah.
where we can just build off each other and just talk about the game. And two super fans having fun, right? So it's been really good. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it was sweet for sure. No problem at all.
Yeah, so we can go and get dressed and maybe head to bed.
Yeah,
And you're already in bed, I think. You're
I am for sure. My big round bed.
king size round bed, right?
That's it.
Yeah, I just watched your audition tape yesterday morning. Loved
That's
it. It
so
was
funny.
awesome.
Yeah,
Right on. Well, again, Arlie, thank you so much. Have a great time in Newfoundland. And
for sure.
if you want to put in a good word for me to the other guys, I'd love to have them
Yeah,
on the show
100%.
eventually.
I'll definitely put in a good word.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man.
No problem.
We
Thanks
will
for having
talk to everybody again very soon. Bye, guys.